Hello everyone, welcome to Citizens Talk. Citizens Talk presents a platform where we interview eminent business personalities, professionals and academics as we find an alternative to the present challenges Sri Lanka faces. So today joining me is eminent business leader Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya. Mr. Hemaka Amarasuriya was the former CEO chairman of Singer Sri Lanka. He also held several positions as chairman of Sri Lanka Insurance and the NDV Group, and also he is a fellow of the Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants and also the founder chairman of Sri Lanka Institute of Marketing. Welcome, Mr. Amarasuriya.
Good morning, Bidushan.
So, Mr. Amarasuri, as we know, based on the current situation the country faces, many businesses face several challenges.
Yeah.
So, my first question to you is, what are these challenges that are most important right now for businesses to overcome, and what sort of solutions that you can propose to them?
Well, the biggest problem that the business sector has is a shortage of dollars, both for importers as well as exporters, because that's a component of imports in the export formula. So, to overcome this is beyond the control of the business sector. It lies with the government and the central bank and the banking sector. Often shipments come into port and we are unable to clear them on a timely basis. And this leads to the productivity of organizations, manufacturing and exports dropping drastically. Then as we go into the short-term future, the inflation is rising very rapidly. And in the month of October, inflation went up almost by 2% to 8.7%. So this would mean pressure on pricing. And on the other side, we have this huge sword of Damocles, I would say, hanging over us because our currency is totally overvalued. And we have to, at some point in time, make the correction, at least a partial correction. So I reckon that rupee dollar parity has to go up. And this will lead to a double whammy on the private sector, first quarter of 2022. So what we can do is, we have gone through many recessions in the last 50 years. I have seen about 6 of them, and we are very adept at handling recessions. So we got to go as business as usual and hope that the government will be able to manage this big economic crisis of shortage of dollars, which I probably will refer to down the road today in the morning. That's about it.
Yes, and also just speak about the foreign exchange crisis. I think, as we know, many businesses are impacted as they cannot source their raw materials.
Yes.
And also they are struggling to find dollars in terms of really paying for these raw materials or several other things. And that applies not only for manufacturing, but for the service sectors as well,
Right.
as they are also hampered as a result of them being forced to convert their dollars.
Yes.
So in such a scenario, do you think firstly that sort of an action is appropriate, and what would you suggest as the right action?
Well, I would say that you can't live with a overpriced rupee for a longer period of time. There has to be a correction, and I reckon it will have to be brought about very shortly. Why the dollars ran out is there is no repayment plan or a restructuring plan for the economy. And that's why everyone says, let's go to the IMF. But there are 2 points of view saying, no, it's a homemade solution that is required. But most people would not agree with that. Basically, a homemade solution does not help our credit rating. And the global economy is looking at us very closely. And we have to restructure our loans. And we need the credibility of our credit rating moving up from where it is, triple C, to a better rating into the Bs. So that is one way we can get our credit rating up, is to work with the international organizations like the IMF, World Bank, ADB, and so on. And that should be the first step that the government should take if they want to resolve these problems. To begin with, these overrun on the dollars caused by fancy projects for which we are now repaying the loans. So we should not forget that how it all started, the indiscipline of our fiscal management and the monetary management.
So what you're saying is we should simply go to the IMF.
We have to
get on to a restructuring plan.
Yes.
And move things forward.
Sure, because the IMF is meant to correct balance of payments. That is the whole purpose of the IMF, and almost every country, including the UK and France and India, and even Japan has a permanent IMF office in Tokyo. So it's no fall back to go to the IMF. That's what they are there for. And of course, they'll have a few measures like correcting of the parity rate, and probably managing the tax cuts, so as to say, which took place with the last budget. But apart from that, the IMF would not want to interfere too much in a country's management. So I reckon we have to do this correction.
And do you believe that delaying in going to the IMF, or what we call a very retardish approach by the current administration to go to the IMF, how impactful will it be to the businesses in Sri Lanka by delaying this process?
Yeah, because we are uncertain. Business likes to see their plans drawn out. When are we going to get our dollars? By delaying this, the correction is not taking place. So longer we stay in this uncertain situation, our productivity will go down. And I believe we are now, our GDP before the crisis was $80 billion, now is ranging on 65 to 70. So that shows the loss of productivity, whereas it should have been $90 billion by now, closing on 100. Of course, you can't blame the government for everything. The pandemic has been a big hit on the Sri Lankan economy, so we got to leave allowance for that. But apart from the pandemic, we need to really get this thing right fast.
Yes, and another way in which Sri Lanka can actually improve its foreign reserves and also create more jobs, improve its GDP through increased productivity, is the inflow of FDIs.
Surely it is.
At this particular junction in time, where Sri Lanka faces, as you mentioned, a decline in credit rating and so on, what sort of solutions that you can propose to drive in more FDI to this country?
Vidushan, the problem with the FDIs is the high country risk and the currency risk. And if you look at the area, if you look at Oceania and Southeast Asia, there are so many other countries which are at this moment was not attractive but are now attractive, like Cambodia, Bangladesh, joining up with Malaysia, Singapore, Vietnam, and the big boys, and India, and also Australia and New Zealand. So why should they come to a country where even your currency that you invest looks like not being secure? Now we are Sri Lankans who are still living abroad, but who have earned dollars and kept the dollars in Sri Lanka because they get a better interest rate. But now there could be a flight of those dollars also away from the country. So I think it's all negative on the currency side, and I don't really agree with the central bank defensive posture and now almost a threatening posture on the people's freedom to manage their dollars. It's going to boomerang on us, and I don't know why they cannot see that thing.
And also another imminent problem that we are seeing is which should be actually quite detrimental to Sri Lanka in the months and years ahead, is the surge in youth migration.
Oh, yes.
And also I think the recent statistics that came out suggest that there's only about 120,000 plus youth that have actually migrated.
Already.
But however, what we see is that there's a huge urgency amongst the youth, and there's a lot of energy amongst the youth to actually move out due to various reasons, such as them not being paid as what they want in order to have a decent life in Sri Lanka and so on. So as an eminent corporate leader who have been in several positions within the corporate hierarchy. How do we retain these youth right now?
Yeah, well, firstly, they feel that they are losing opportunity. The best years of their life, their dreams will not be fulfilled because there seems to be a lack of confidence in the leadership of not only the government but even the opposition. So they wonder when this problem is ever going to, whether it's going to correct itself or it's going to drag on them. So, and the other thing is they have got peers outside, their batchmates, their friends who keep calling them and saying, why don't you come, Machang, because it's nice here and you can earn while you work. While you learn, you can earn so that you can pay for your teaching, learning cost, education cost. So all these things are very attractive. One way is to increase the number of entries into the universities, because I don't know why they've been talking of this for the last many years. But out of the A levels, 4 A levels, only about I think something like 20% around that gets into the universities. So the other boys who are clever, who are educated, who can, mind you, our education standards are very high at that, though it may not be updated. They are very high at the pre-university entrance. So they are all capable of being educated, earning a degree, and now they don't want to stop at the degree, they want to do the MBA and then the PhD. The ambitions are very high. And I heard that even the rural kids, their parents are selling property and getting out. So that's the disparity is somewhat dissolved, because only the urbans used to go out, the big people with lots of family background, but now even the rural boys and girls are going out, and I think that's a good thing. And on the positive side, well, if they can't find the position here, why not let them go? Because at least 20% of them will come back. The other 80% will be sending remittances to our home, back to our country, to their parents and their friends and all that. But it's one of our major foreign earners. So I look at it not so dismally. And this is not the first time that this migration has happened. It's a bit alarming, but there's no correction at the moment. But I think they just got to increase the number of seats in the universities.
And also, to close this conversation, you mentioned that the youth have lost leadership in confidence in both the government and opposition.
Yes.
So, as an eminent business personality again, what sort of leadership does this country need at this particular juncture? And also, I think we are looking at an era where we are seeing a lot of reversals in policy.
Well, we have so many role models around us, like Angela Merkel, who just retired. We have Imran Khan, who's emerging as a great leader, Macron from France, then Jacinta Ardern of New Zealand. So why don't we take these role models of leadership? Because the parliament is one shouting match and it's totally non-productive. Yeah, absolutely non-productive for them as well as for the country. So they might as well spend some time. Where is the export plan that they should be driving? Forget this dollar crisis. This dollar crisis would not have ever arisen if they had gone into ICT. I was in the task force for ICT in 1993. And our main suggestion was IT parks, main suggestion. And then the government changed and we found a spot in Jayala also. And that was the end of the story. But fortunately, the president is on ICT, and he is already trying to set up IT parks, ICT parks in various parts of the country. We have this massive infrastructure here, the underground marine cables. 5 of them leave the country and go to the whole world. And that data can be transmitted very rapidly out of Sri Lanka into the world. At the current moment, we have $1.5 billion in ICT, and well, the target is $3 billion in 3 years. Even if they don't achieve it, the good thing is that they are focusing on a target and they're doing the infrastructure. And then there are things like ilmenite, the minerals. Where's that place now? Yeah, we have a factory in the northeast in Pulmandai, and they are producing ilmenite, but that capacity can be tripled. And this today, ilmenite is as much as $200 per ton. So why don't we focus on this? Why don't we encourage ship and boat building? Where we have about a very fine growth, and along with the marinas, that they are going to build one in the port city, probably Trinco and Gaul, or these two will go together. And harbors are increasing in number. So that's another big industry. Then how about food and vegetables? We have got food storage plan which Harsha De Silva inaugurated, but actually Dudley Selnak in 1960 talked about this in his election campaign, and he appealed to the private sector, come and let's do a joint stock company. But again, governments changed, and then these plans evaporate. That's another sad thing about Sri Lankan politics. Let's take the good ideas from your opposition and let's say thank you instead of throwing it out of the window. So there are so many other points of call which we can do. And I think if we get our exports right, we won't have this problem. We can add a $3 billion more to our foreign reserves every year, and we won't have a balance of payment problem. So why don't they focus on a grand plan for exports rather than box around in the parliament? It's nowhere. And so it's a very bad example to the youth of this country.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Mr. Amarasuriya,
Yes.
for joining us today.
Thank you.
So in a nutshell, what Mr. Amarasuriya said was, don't delay in the journey towards the IMF, restructure our loans, get our foreign exchange matter sorted. To all the youth, Mr. Amarasuriya clearly gave inspiration to stay back or move out in terms and pass on your remittances to Sri Lanka, but someday contribute to the country. And in terms of the politicians of our country, to contribute towards an export plan, try to get that part right so that there can be 3 billion or
Sure.
plus USD contribution to the country. So thank you very much to all our audiences, and we look forward to another episode in the coming days.